Hey everyone, it's Wednesday, May 22nd, and we've really had some weather around here, some cold and windy weather, which means the bees aren't getting out and flying much, which means they're not able to gather the stores that they need to raise brood. And that means they pull back on raising brood, and that's not what I want them to do right now. I want them to continue raising brood. I'm seeing it in my small hives, not so much in the big hives. The bigger hives seem to have enough pollen and nectar that they're just marching forward. But these small hives, I'm finding that they're stagnating and they're pulling back because they don't have the resources to raise brood. So I'm going to go in these hives and check them and see if they've got the pollen and the nectar that they need. We like to think that, okay, things are blooming, the plants are doing the thing, we're starting summer, and the bees don't need any feed anymore. And generally speaking, that may be the case for a bigger hive. But if you have a small hive, that may not be the case. These small hives simply lack the population to go out and gather the resources they need in the quantities that they need in order to raise brood and really build up. So I think it's kind of important, especially on small hives, to keep an eye on them and make sure that they're not running out of food. And what I've seen in a couple of my small hives is they're running out of food and then they're pulling back. And I don't want them to do that. I want them to keep going. So I need to feed them. Again, the bigger hives just don't seem to have that problem, but these small hives do. So I'm going to check them and make sure that they've got what they need. We're just going to do a quick peek here on these hives. I'm not going to do a deep dive, but I just want to see if they've got enough stores to keep them going. See a few drones up here. I didn't bring my smoker, so I'm not sure they're going to be real happy with me. Oh, this hive's looking better. Population's looking much better. And if they've got enough stores, then we'll leave them alone. But if they don't, I want to make sure that they've got enough to keep that brood rearing going. I don't know if you can see that. Probably can't see down in those cells, but there's nothing in them. That one's dry. Now, that doesn't mean everything is, but let's kind of look at, and I'll probably have to go down one box into the brood nest to see if they've got pollen. Yeah, I'm seeing not a ton of cells, but I'm seeing some cells with nectar in them. So I'm okay with that. I'm a little wondering if they've got enough pollen down here, so they're not going to be real happy with me doing this, but I want to make sure they've got enough pollen to keep the brood rearing going. And this hive's looking much better than it was, but they may not have the protein. And this frame's pretty well just empty. Nothing. Backside's empty. Nothing there. A little bit of brood. I'm seeing just a little bit of pollen right here. Tiny bit of pollen there. A little tiny bit of brood, but I don't see, not really seeing much pollen on that frame. Some. I'd like to see a little bit of larvae so I could see if they're wet or not. Not much pollen and really not very much nectar around the brood area, which tells me that these ladies have consumed what they had. Almost no pollen around the edge here. I should be seeing a pollen ring at least right here and right here. And there's nothing. There's my queen. but they just don't have the pollen they need. And I'm really not seeing, I was thinking they'd had a little more nectar, but that's really all I need to see, that they really just don't have much pollen in this hive. Or much nectar. Tiny bit of nectar in the upper box, but really not enough for them to do much with. So they're going to slow down on their brood rearing because they don't have the resources. So I'm going to give them a little bit. I'm going to give them a little bit of that. That's just going to get smashed down, oozed out. I'll clean that up just fine. And I am going to give them maybe a quart of syrup, half a gallon or so. That's not tons, but it is enough to keep them going and hopefully keep them raising some brood and not stagnate, not stop just because of the weather. Let's check another hive and see what it looks like. This hive doesn't have near the population as the other one did. I'm betting they're light on stores. That's completely empty, not a thing in it. Same with that. Nothing there. Yeah, these ladies have not got an ounce of pollen or anything of nectar to speak of. So I suspect these ladies need some little bit of food as well. Let's look down a box, see what they're doing. A little bit of pollen and a little bit of nectar in that frame, but no brood. Kind of a spotty brood pattern. This is not the greatest brood pattern that I'm seeing, but I'm not seeing enough pollen in here for them to really go to town on raising brood. Oh, look, I got some queen cups here. Nothing in them. They're empty. But I'm not seeing any pollen around the edges at all. On anything. These bees in the corner, there's a little bit of nectar in the corner and that's it. So these bees are needing some food. They just don't have enough to raise brood and really go. So let's give them some food. As you can see, I'm not giving them a ton of pollen patty, but some. But some, and we're going to give them some syrup. Save the rest of that for the next hive. That'll give those bees a little bit of feed. Hopefully get them going. There we go. Let's check one more hive. Okay, this hive was a hive that was supposed to be raising a queen, didn't. And so I put a nuke in this hive last time we were here. Let's see how they're faring. Hopefully they've accepted that new queen. But I suspect the nuke that I gave them had plenty of resources, but with this cold weather, they may have used all that up. That's all empty. Empty. That's got a little bit of nectar in it, but not tons. So what I'm seeing here is a little bit of nectar around here. Just one or two cells with some pollen. And then I am seeing eggs down here in the underneath everything. And same on this side. A little bit of nectar around here. Almost no pollen. And a few eggs, which is good. That means my good queen should still be alive in here. A little bit of nectar, but almost no pollen. I'm going to go down a box and see what's happening in the bottom box. I'm not seeing any pollen around these edges, just tiny bits, one, a cell here and a cell there, but just not enough pollen. Same here. They're going to get a good pollen patty, and this one I think I'm going to give them a full pollen patty. They just don't have any pollen whatsoever. I might tear this in half. Go like this. And they're going to get the rest of the syrup. So it really was as I feared in these hives. These little hives are falling behind because they don't have the resources. The bigger hives, I'm not really worried about them. They had plenty of resources. They should have enough feed to last them for a couple of weeks even. But these little hives are just too small, and they're lacking pollen and they're lacking nectar in order to really raise brood. So giving them a little bit of feed right now is going to help them along, keep that brood cycle going, and hopefully they can keep going.